All right. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 12th, 2020 order imposing strict limitations of the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Yarmouth Community and Economic Development Committee meeting is being conducted via remote participation. All votes during this meeting will need to be conducted by roll call. No in-person attendance will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access and participate in the proceedings as provided for in the order. Public participation will be permitted by allowing members of the public to join this meeting via Zoom or via the telephone. Mr. Chairman, if you could just take a roll call quote to enter into the meeting quorum, we can begin.
Steve, are you here?
Here.
Ken, are you here?
Here.
Joanne, are you here?
Here.
And Peter Smith, I am in fact here. So there are four folks who we have a quorum. Kyle, are we expecting anybody else?
We're just not expecting Mary, but I didn't hear from Jack or Ryan. So
Okay. So Jeff, you've pretty much got the floor, and you've got to vaporize yourself around 4:30. So do you want to get started?
I would love to get started. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you adjusting your schedules. I know we tried to meet a couple of different times to talk about these things, but you're right. I do have a meeting at 4:30, so I appreciate you letting me go up front here. So you'd asked to talk about a few things. I think the first one on the list that Kyle sent me was the beautification team. I really do appreciate the committee's support with that effort over the last 3 or 4 years that we've done that. Last year, it was included in the DPW operating budget, so it is a line to pay for a supervisor as well as a laborer for the beautification team, and that continues in this current year's budget as well. But last year we ran into a challenge related to COVID and difficult, uncertain financial times where we weren't allowed to bring any seasonal people on. And so in that circumstance, because there was essentially a hiring freeze, if you will, that was put on by the town administrator, board of selectmen level, we came to this committee and you graciously agreed to fund the beautification team for last year. Unfortunately, we were not able to fill that. We had advertisements out, we had feelers out for staffing, and there was just not a lot of people interested in working last year, or they had plenty of other opportunities. If you remember last year, we were in a very difficult environment. I think some of the essential workforce was getting premiums to work and other reasons. And then some people just were not interested in working in that environment. So for many reasons, probably we weren't able to fill those seasonal positions last year, but your committee was very supportive in funding those. What I will say this year is it's still in the budget that we have going forward for this year. And I'm not aware of any hiring freeze with regards to seasonal staff that will be implemented or that will be required to follow this year. Of course, our town administrator is new, and there is going to be some changeover on the board of selectmen as well. So everything is TBD. But as it stands right now, we are fully ramping up our seasonal staff. We don't have that same hiring freeze on us at the moment. So we have put out advertisements and we have feelers out for some seasonal staff, and I'm hopeful that we will be able to get those positions filled. As of today, they are not filled, but we are in the process of filling that. So, that's a real long-winded explanation of where we are. I probably just stated some things that you're well aware of. But the bottom line is, as of right now, I don't think I need a vote from your committee to pay for the beautification team. That's funded, and I'm allowed to use those funds as of today for that purpose. And so we'll plan to continue to do that. If I get into a critical situation where I need to find funds outside of the operating budget, I might come back to your committee. But as of today, we should be in pretty good shape for that. And I hope to fill those positions. If any of you hear of people that are looking for employment, the town of Yarmouth is certainly looking for seasonal staff, but I'm sure many other people are as well. But that's the situation we are in with regard to the beautification team, and happy to answer any questions you have on that topic.
Hey, Jeff, just from the seasonal staff standpoint, 18 and older, is that a requirement?
Yes,
okay.
That's
I have a friend who was a high school
require,
senior.
yes.
I have a friend who was a high school senior, which I think he's only 17 and looking for a job. So
What you can certainly have him, put an application in, and we'll consider that. Typically, it
Okay.
has been 18, and the reason for that is because of use of power equipment. I mean, we
Right,
don't have,
understood. Yep.
doing a lot, but weed whackers, even hedge trimmers, we've required that to be 18. But in tough times, we really do want to fill this position. So
Yep.
that's something that if we had no other options, I would certainly bring that before.
Yeah, he will be 18 in September, but he's not going to be 18 till then, so.
Okay, well, it's close. If we continue to have difficult time filling a position, I'm happy to have a discussion with Sarah O'Reilly, our Human Resource Director, to see if
Sure.
there's any flexibility, but we typically haven't hired anyone under 18 in the past.
Okay.
Steve, you had a question?
Yes, Jeff, thanks for coming, attending the meeting today. The beautification team, does it do any work at all as far as picking up nip bottles, empty nip bottles around the town?
Yes, that hasn't been the primary focus in the past. We have other people that do that. At Highway, we typically send out 2 people almost every day to pick up trash and litter and nip bottles or anything they come across. We have supplemented with trash pickup with the beautification team, but typically the beautification team in the past, and I think you've had a list of their projects, and it wouldn't be much different this year. But typically it's the weeds on Route 28. It's some of the other things that we have specifically not addressed with regular full-time town staff, if you will. And certainly litter and nips are something we do address with the full-time staff. We just don't have enough staff to do all of the 240 miles of road and keep up with it, I should say.
Okay,
But we
so,
certainly do some of that in-house also and supplement with beautification team.
Pete, if I could ask another question, thank you for that answer. What would you need, just if you need to get back to us, to Kyle, that would be great too. What would you need to do a more comprehensive cleanup of the nip bottle and debris around the 240 miles of streets in the town?
I'd say I would love it if we had a dedicated 2-person litter team. The 2 people that I referred to at Highway, they also have other functions. They're, relatively well-paid truck drivers because Highway doesn't have any laborers, but they do everything. So if we needed them for a project, we might need to pull them off of the litter patrol to do something during the season, a big drainage project or, a major trimming project that we needed to, run the chipper and have other more highly skilled staff to be involved in. But if we had just a dedicated litter team, I think that it was seasonal. I think that would be an awesome opportunity. So I'd say 2 for the summer I think we could make a big dent in the challenge, the problems that we have with regard to litter. I've, had a long concern about the amount of litter that just seems to continue to, impact our roadways. I know it negatively impacts kind of the way people see things. I hear about that on the Route 6 issue all the time because I think Route 6 is even much worse with litter. But we can do better as well, even on the town roads. And I think a dedicated 2-person team for the summer would be, what we would need. And I think that's a good manageable step too, right?
Yeah.
Because I just explained the challenges we've had with seasonal staff and filling those positions. I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to say, hey, we could completely solve the problem with 4 or 6 people. I don't know if we could get 4 or 6 people. So I just would throw that out there as something that might be obtainable.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could, I would ask the committee, I don't know if we need to take a vote on, I don't think we do, but I would ask the administration to work with Jeff on getting back to us on what the cost would be for those 2 additional employees, for the seasonal employees.
Yep, sounds good. Sounds
Okay.
good.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank
Jeff,
you.
one of the things that we've talked about but haven't really tackled for many years is the median on Willow Street. Is there anything that could be planted there that's relatively easy to deal with, doesn't have to be dealt with every year? I know first couple of years they planted daffodils and now it has lovely weeds growing up on it and stuff. And I know it was expensive because you had to have the details on both sides to protect the folks. But if we could plant something there that would be, long lasting, not high growing, low bushes or something like that, that would be relatively easy. I think that would be a great project. Now, of course, I've never discussed this with anybody else on the committee, but you know, if everybody else were interested in that, I think we could probably find $1 or $2 to take care of that.
Yeah, that's good to know. We can certainly take a look at that. I'm not necessarily a plant expert, I'm an engineer by training, so I'd have to probably refer to others that might have a better feel of what would be low maintenance and more appropriate, like a landscape architect or something like that. It is something we could look at. I do know that when that project was first done years ago, they had some kind of, low maintenance grasses put in there, but they quickly get overtaken with weeds and other things. I did happen to drive by there the other day and still saw some remnants of daffodils popping up, but it's certainly not as extensive as it could be. I think there's a great opportunity there to do something. I'm just not sure what the right thing is. We do occasionally mow it, even with the highway crews, when they have the roadside mower going down, we do mow that. So we try to keep it relatively low, even in its current condition. But I can do a little legwork and see what might be possible there.
Yeah, I certainly have no idea, but I think anything that would be low maintenance that would work would be improvement over what's there right now.
Right.
And it is kind of a gateway to us as well.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. I can work with Kyle and we can see what possibilities might be out there.
Yeah, and if you come back and say, there's really nothing that can be done, that's the way it goes.
Okay.
Just wanted to make one note on this item, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
So the committee does have $20,000 budgeted. That was from last year with the beautification team that was never spent.
Yeah.
So that money's still available. Sounds like from Mr. Colby's explanation that he's not going to need that funding for this year, but perhaps that funding could be pivoted for the, the litter cleanup crew that you guys were just discussing.
Yeah. Why don't, my suggestion would be, I knew that 20 grand was there. My suggestion is let's leave it there for the time being, because Jeff may come back and say, yeah, I need some more people. I found 3 really good people. So, maybe that money should stay there. And I don't think we would have a problem if we used the beautification team, or whatever you want to call them, to do cleanup. I think that's beautification would be my thought. I don't think we'd be misleading anybody by using it for a litter team.
Yep.
Kyle, do you agree or disagree with that statement?
I agree with that.
Right.
I agree, Peter, 100%.
Great option.
So my suggestion is that we leave the 20 grand where it is for the time being. Is that sound reasonable?
Yeah, and we just wait for Jeff to get back to us on what the cost might be. Perfect.
Great.
Sounds good. So the other main topic you guys needed to discuss was the Yarmouth Port Common drainage.
Yep. Looks like there's been a lot of work that's been done up there.
I think the good thing I'd like to just report as a completed project, or there's probably a little cleanup that still needs to happen, but is the electrical work that your committee paid for. I think that came out very well. It really cleaned up I don't want to call it an illegal connection, but maybe a not permitted electrical connection out there. It made it proper. So everything's up to code now. There's a proper meter there. Maybe that's what I should say. Call it an unmetered connection.
Pre-existing non-conforming use.
That's right.
That's a good way to put it. Yes, pre-existing non-conforming. So that's been totally corrected now. We've got power in various spots, as you know, some outlets available. I think that was a great project. Relatively straightforward. Took a little while to make it happen, but I think it came out very well. The other thing that you funded was the drainage study, and I think that the report that CEI put together was very in-depth and came up with a number of different options. There was no cost associated with that, so if there was an interest from the committee to explore any one of those, that would probably be the next step, would be to dig into it a little bit deeper on the cost. I will say from my read of that, and based upon experience in other areas of for these types of projects, I think there's going to be a fair amount of cost associated with some of those. Some of those probably could be dismissed pretty quickly, but they are options. So I think CEI wanted to list them and demonstrate that might address some of the concerns. So really what I would be interested in hearing is what the committee thought about some of those different options. Some of them were pretty radical, like filling the northern part of the green. Some of them could end up with some pretty significant costs, like with regrading roadways. I did talk with our town engineer, Amanda Lima, about the report and what her thoughts were. And if there was an interest in pursuing something with regard to the roads, we could actually look at permeable pavement. That might not completely solve the problem. It handles the road drainage, but what about the water that gets into the green from direct rainfall that just can't dissipate? So, some of those options that CEI came up with might address things like the road or the fringes or the edges or better berming, things like that. But I don't know that they would be a complete solution. So that's just a difficult area. Kyle, since you, gave me the charge to come to work on that project, actually forwarded to the committee, I think, and myself, one of the kind of historical documents about, what had happened there. And it was an area that, people dug clay out of. And so it's just historically had bad soils. And I think that report shows that they are fairly deep. I think one of the reasons why I was interested in having that investigated is we just didn't know. Maybe it's only 3 feet deep, maybe it's only 4 feet deep, maybe a relatively minimal disturbance could kind of handle getting through some of that, difficult clay layer. But the CEI report indicates it's really pretty deep there. So I don't think there's an inexpensive solution. So that's kind of where I'd be interested in hearing what the committee's thoughts might be on, next steps. How far do you want to take this?
Can I? Yeah, since I started all this mess, thank you for following up with it. I really appreciate it. But I'm kind of partial to alternatives 3, 4, and 5. But I think one of the things we need to do first, Jeff, is to get a little more input in terms of what that catch basin downstream can accommodate. Can it accommodate in a 1-inch storm the amount of water that's draining onto the common right now? So I would like to do a couple of things. One, to get a little more information on that downstream catch basin, what it can accommodate. And then based upon that, maybe we can take some baby steps here to minimize the cost. We might find, for example, that by installing the Cape Cod berms on Strawberry Lane in certain areas, maybe sufficient enough to accommodate what we're looking at. I don't know, but I think if we check first to see what that can accommodate and take some baby steps, maybe it's something more than just the Cape Cod berms. Maybe it's the Cape Cod berms and installing a pipe to collect some existing runoff and run it off to the other side of the road may be another option. But I think we just ought to do a couple more things before we decide on what the best option is to proceed with.
Okay, we certainly can look at that. If you want to share your individual thoughts or collective thoughts with myself and Kyle, that will kind of give us the direction you'd like to take this. That's really what I'm interested in hearing is kind of what your thoughts are. And I appreciate that. If you could maybe capture that with an email, I think that would be even better.
I'd be happy to. I'll send it out to everyone. I just think option 1, alternative 1, removing trees and that type of thing, and then doing some backfill is not going to be attractive. It's going to raise a lot of air, I think, from a lot of the abutters to the property. And I think we just ought to remove that entirely. That's my own opinion. But I'll be happy to share my thoughts and comments with you and the rest of the committee here.
Steve,
Yes, sir.
on the Cape Cod berms, are you talking about the east side of Strawberry Lane? Or,
Yeah.
or
I'm talking about
even
the east side. The east side, it appears to me that the northeast side of the site is really the problematic side. Am I right on that,
That's
Jeff?
right. Yes.
Right. So yes, it would be in that area that we install them in berms and possibly on 6A, if that can be accommodated. I realize a lot of this has to be coordinated with the state, and that's why I think we need to check with the state to see what their willingness would be in terms of working with us to get a alternative remedy here.
where Strawberry Lane and Strawberry Lane come together and become a Strawberry Lane going up, there's also, at a heavy rainstorm, there's also a ton of water that comes right down Strawberry Lane that goes right across the common. So maybe even a berm at the top of, Jeff, you know where I'm talking about, where it comes together.
Yeah.
And there's a little green spot right there, grass spot, maybe direct water into that with a catch basin. you know, I think that would help, some of the water as well. It's certainly not a complete solution, but I think that might work. Again, I don't have an engineer's background at all, so it's, as they say, a wild ass guess.
Okay, yeah, if you could compile some thoughts, again, I'll review those thoughts and potentially baby steps, like you're mentioning, with our town engineer. You know, some of these things we probably don't need to, you know, re-engage CEI necessarily.
Right.
You know, they did the borings for us and I think provided some good data. But I think there is some additional investigation as well as analysis and maybe even some small implementation steps that we could look at internally. So I'll be happy to hear what your thoughts are, and then I'll review them with the staff.
Yeah,
Right.
thank you. I think they did a great job for the time and money that they had to do it with, Jeff. I think they did a real good job. Thanks.
Yep.
Right. And the comment, especially right along 6A, that used to be a little frog pond
All right.
not so long ago.
Jeff, Mr. Chairman, I have just a couple of questions. Jeff, a quick question on process. How would this become a project and find a line item home somewhere in your budget or somewhere else as a capital budget request if it met those kinds of requirements? I'm wondering, you know, it came from this committee. It certainly was a good idea to take a look at it, but I can't see this committee really owning it from kind of a process standpoint, or maybe we do, and you may not be able to answer that question. I'm just wondering what the next step is once we give you our comments on it. Where does it land in the town for further development? And then secondly, jumping ahead to say, someone says, yes, this is a really good idea and we should do it. For the work that would be done on Strawberry Lane, town-owned land, town-owned roadways, would we be able to find a place in your roadway budget? You know, typically you have your allocation through one of the articles at town meeting, where that kind of work could be incorporated in the roadway budget and the drainage budget?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think we still have some work to do in, you know, determining the scope of the project before I can fully answer that question. You know, if this was going to be kind of its own standalone, you know, fully scoped project, we could submit it to Capital Budget Committee in the next round. So, you know, those are usually due around September timeframe, and we could submit it as the, you know, Yarmouth Port Village Green project, and it's for X dollars. But with that said, I'm not sure that's the direction we're headed. There might be, like we talked about, some smaller steps that can be done. Berming doesn't necessarily need to be its own project. We could probably do that with some of the road maintenance money. You know, if it's a bigger stormwater project, you know, that's going to be a challenge because I'm not sure if the committee's aware, but stormwater was not funded last year, and stormwater is not funded proposed to be funded this year. So we are very limited on the funds we have for stormwater specific projects, unfortunately. And the reason for that is simply COVID and the difficult financial times we're in. All indications are I've heard from you know, support from capital budget and support from the selectmen and finance committee and our other town staff is that when we can return those things back to the tax under the tax levy and fund those, you know, rather than with a free cash request, or when we can build up you know, some of our capital funds, we'll probably see a return to some of those stormwater funds. I think that the selectmen, when I reviewed my budget with them, were very supportive of that, but it just hasn't happened last year and it's not planned to happen this year. So for a significant stormwater project, we might be a little out. We might have to go a few more years before, at least one more year before we'll get significant funds to do stormwater projects again. We have a lot of them in town to do. We've just had to take a season off or two because of the fiscal situation that we're in. But I would definitely be very interested in having stormwater funds return as soon as possible because we have a lot we need to do in stormwater. And I'd say this might even, you know, turn into a stormwater project depending on what we decide to do or what we can't do in-house. So.
Yeah, well, that's exactly where I was going, because I know just from our relationship on the Capital Budget Committee, I'm pretty aware of your two main items, at least at town meeting, where you have a separate allocation that has been favorably received, except since last year, where you were essentially funded at zero.
Right.
And this year again. Again, my question goes to how this would become a priority as a drainage project, because that's really what it seems to be. And if you don't have money for drainage this year, maybe there is a way it could find its a place in the drainage for fiscal 23. Because there's no
Yeah.
room now for fiscal 22, it sounds like.
Right, as of fiscal 22, we're still not being funded for
Yeah,
stormwater projects.
a zero line item again.
It would have to be 23. I would hope that would return, and we certainly could take a look at that. We have a growing list of stormwater projects because, I felt like we were making pretty good progress, and then taking a couple of years off, the list is going to build back up again. So I need to look at all the priorities and see where this could fit, but it certainly would be on the list.
Thank you.
Anybody have any more questions for Jeff?
Yeah, Jeff, I know your time's short. I just was looking to see if you could update us on the DPW building project and how that's going.
Absolutely, and that's actually my 4:30 meeting is with the building committee. That's been a great project. We're getting a good quality building. We've got a good contractor in GVW. I think I might have mentioned that last time we talked. It's a little behind schedule. Some of that is COVID related. Supply chain issues have impacted things. I would say that our contractor GVW has done a good job in trying to overcome most of those issues. But one of them that they've not been able to overcome is the main switchgear electrical panel for the building. Its primary purpose is to switch between the emergency generator and the main power feed that comes in from the street. Has been significantly delayed. It's actually supposed to be shipped tomorrow, and I was told this morning it's on schedule to be shipped tomorrow, but that has delayed things approximately a month or 6 weeks. So, we should actually have already moved into the building. But as of right now, the status is that week of June 14th is looking like a pretty solid week for us to move into the building. So we should at that point have an occupancy permit. The landscaping should be done. Essentially, everything for the new building will be done. There is some follow-up work once highway moves out of the old green building into the new building that needs to happen with that old building and some of the site work around their existing space. They've kind of been squeezed over into that one side for the last 15, 16 months. But when they move into the new building, then the contractor will move into what we're calling phase 2 of the project and do a little work over there. It's relatively minor in the grand scheme of things. The bulk of the work, obviously, is the new building, and that should be wrapping up here in the next 6 weeks.
I was in there yesterday. It looks really, really nice. I'm wondering if there's any open offices.
Well, as of now, there's all the offices are filled. There's one, I think, open cubicle, Kyle. So if you workspace, we might be able to accommodate.
That'd be an upgrade on the windowless corner they shoved me into town hall. So
There you go. Hey Jeff, one other quick question for you. I know it's on state highway, but can you update us where they stand with the Park River Bridge project? Do you have any knowledge where that's at? And,
Sure,
that's certainly become a traffic nightmare on Route 28. So
yeah, absolutely. And that is a town managed project, although just like you said, it's on the state highway. And it's going well. By Memorial Day, it'll be open to the full width for the roadway. The under the restriction, the 30-foot width of the bridge has been open to full flushing, if you will. So the environmental part of the project is fully functioning at this point. But the roadway will be open to the full width starting by Memorial Day. Is the plan. There will be some follow-up cleanup and planting work that needs to happen, but at least the roadway will be open to relatively unrestricted for Memorial Day. There is some sidewalk work that needs to happen, so that might be allowed past Memorial Day for a week or two. But beyond that, they're going to take a break for the summer, just like they did last year. But it'll be 90+% complete.
So will that be finished roadway by Memorial Day? The actual finished roadway by Memorial Day, or?
No, it'll actually be the binder surface, so it will still be a little rough. They'll need to do some final paving in the spring, part of the cleanup and the planting work, but it right now is anticipated to just be that binder surface, just like it is on the south side now, but for the north at the full width.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Jeff. I know you gotta get going. I like your idea about the committee compiles their thoughts on the drainage, and you can send them to me and I'll relay them to Jeff and we can kind of figure out next steps on that.
Super.
Sounds good.
Perfect, yes.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank-
you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks,
very
Jeff.
much.
Thank you for your time.
So the chairman had to depart, so we no longer have a meeting quorum. So we don't really have that much else to discuss anyways. The petitioned articles, the selectmen already voted on, so
All right,
it's not really that important. So you can't vote on the minutes because we don't have a quorum.
nope.
Next meeting is supposed to be the goal discussion. The
Mhm.
only other item I didn't know if you guys wanted to include was the Chamber of Commerce marketing update. From my perspective, I'm not sure if you guys want to continue to review those in a meeting or if you just want to kind of if you have any questions or thoughts. A lot of times it's just Jen presents and committee says, it looks good. So I don't know if I can send out the report and we can decide if we wanted to vote time to a meeting for it or how you
Yeah,
guys.
Kyle, that would be my recommendation moving forward, is that we just do it on a report basis, that they turn in a quarterly report to you, right?
Yep.
So if they turn that in, you submit that to the committee. And then if we have any questions, we can ask, but to tie up half of a meeting with us, and no offense to Jen, she's done a great job, but
Right.
we got other stuff we got to get done. And I just find it not as useful as what we could be doing.
Right. That was my thought. All right, perfect. I'll do that because we already have the report for the last couple of months. So I'll send that out soon.
Yeah, and I'd like to keep the May 13th meeting specific to goals, because we've
Yep.
been trying to get that knocked out now for
Right.
6 or 7 meetings, so.
Prioritizing them long-term, short-term, right? That's
Right, exactly. I don't know if anybody else has any comments to that, but that's just my thought.
Sounds good.
That sounds okay.
All right.
All right, hearing that, we'll see everybody on the 13th of May.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay,
right.
great. Thank you.
NFL draft
Bye-bye.
tonight. Let's see what the Patriots do.
That's
Yeah,
right. Get a
quarterback.
That's what we need to
Quarterback,
do.
Justin Fields. I want Justin Fields.
I'll say, all right,
Crimson
I'll
Tide.
take anybody better than Cam, so.
I know. See you guys.